Welcome back. This is going to be another little news report briefing of what's going on in the world today, so stay tuned and get informed. Well, let's get to it. Belarus wants Russian nukes, so they're in fact the government's trying to actually pass a constitutional referendum to removing its non-nuclear status. The president of Belarus, President Lukashenko, contends that the NATO aggressions towards that requires Russia to relocate their nuclear missiles to Belarus. The Belarusian military may supplement the Russian forces in a renewed push into and towards Kiev in Ukraine. So Russia continues to use Belarus for its Iskander-M missile launches that they use a lot against Ukraine to target their strategic military infrastructures. Russia does claim its nuclear posture increased due to the provocative statements and actions that were made from the Western nations. So Belarus's demands do come from a conflict of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Russia believes that the Belarusian forces are an option due to the Union State and the Collective Security Treaty Organization. The Collective Treaty Organization is also known as the CSTO, and its commitments. So Russia is likely to increase its threats of nuclear engagement as its war effort inside Ukraine stalls. So we should expect a renewed flights by the Boeing WC-135, the Nukes sniffer, aircraft in Eastern Europe to investigate Russia's nuclear forces and its deployments. Belarus' involvement in Ukraine is likely to increase material and training to support Ukrainian forces from NATO members. So it looks like they're trying to posture for a more aggressive act in case any Western nations within NATO, or maybe outside of NATO, but definitely within NATO, decide to do something as a boots on the ground. Putin did threaten that if anyone steps up and put boots on the ground and engages forces within Ukraine, that he will use basically any means necessary to make you regret it. Now, does that mean a conventional war of just small arms fire, artillery, and missiles, and aircraft and such? Possible. Does that mean cyber attacks? Possible. So, or at least more aggressive, large-scale cyber attacks is possible. But that's where we're at currently with the posturing of nuclear weapons, and that's not good. And it's something we need to consider and plan for. So, as I mentioned before, with the increased threats from Putin, with the nuclear, with an attack, you'll regret it, so to speak. Like I mentioned with cyber attacks, the U.S. Cyber Advisor actually has issued a warning with malware used in Ukraine. In fact, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as the CISA, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations, also known as what we know as the FBI, has issued a joint cyber advisory covering the malware used during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The advisory urges that immediate adoption of this of cybersecurity. So you're going to see, if you want to probably start a business in cybersecurity, probably now, right? Measures to mitigate these cybersecurity mitigate against this Whispergate and this Hermetic Wiper malware. Agencies state that there is no specific or credible cyber threat to the United States homeland at this time. Well, I mean, however, they're imposing these stricter sanctions that might bring about the Russian cyber response, as mentioned before. This federal government is continuing its public release of information and no catalogs of these cyber threats and its vulnerabilities to compensate for the lack of authority that they actually really present and access in a privately controlled critical infrastructure. So, while these cyber leaders are doubtful about these large-scale attacks against the U.S. and its critical infrastructure, is what they say. There is a concern that the Russian proxy groups will use ransomware tactics to exacerbate existing problems such as rise in oil and wheat prices. With the rise in oil and wheat prices, we know the fact that Russia is a large exporter of oil. I believe it's the second largest. And with the war going on, Ukraine is the third largest. I've seen two reports where it says second and third largest in wheat exports. So with that being said, it's gonna hit us pretty hard. We do know that there have been, like I mentioned before, cyber attacks against Amazon, and of course cyber attacks in all areas of Ukraine, which can pose a risk to shutting down our infrastructure, such as water and electricity and such. So we have to, as United States citizens, we have to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and that is to make sure we store up on extra fuel, store up on wheat, flour, rice, grains, anything to increase our supply at home. In fact, I'm going to be putting a video up on how to properly store rice in the future. I'm working that and getting that together right now. But that's something we all have to plan. We have to get to. We have to do. We got to get on it. We can't be lackadaisical in this world right now, and you got to get ahead of the game. So we'll touch more on that. We'll touch more on that for sure. So as I mentioned before, you can see that you'll see that exponential increase in fuel when you hit the pumps. Also bread. I mean, wheat. We're looking at wheat and barley and grain that we get. So it's our beer, our bread, our flour, our tons of things that we get that's made out of just these simple products. And since the majority, 1/3 of the world's supply of it comes out of Russia, and then like Ukraine a little bit too. So as we go, we got to pay attention. And the USDA actually forecasts a food price increase. Say within the United States Department of Agriculture has increased its consumer food price broadcast. So their food price actually has increased, and estimates due to the inflation range between 2 to 5%. These estimates adjustments were based on like final numbers from last month. So the consumer prices from restaurants are expected to see the highest rise. So if they see it, we're seeing it too, because they have to raise their prices in order to meet their demands. They're paying off all their debt, so to speak, all their supplies, their employees, their rents and stuff like that. So they're going to get hit hard, and they're going to have to raise it to feed us, and so they can survive as well. So the USDA estimates are not really including the recent geopolitical effects towards the increased price. So the war going on over there, it's not necessarily affecting that. So you should see even a little bit higher. Officials have highlighted the fact that it's too early to even in the crisis to even provide realistic estimates for our domestic increases. So there is a bit of a concern that the alternative grain suppliers cannot produce enough capacity. So alternate grain suppliers would be our local and other countries that we actually get it from, excluding Russia and Ukraine, because they're their situation over there. So the domestic wheat conditions continue to degrade to about 73% of U.S. production in drought conditions. So that means even we can't necessarily provide for ourselves. So this situation going on over in Ukraine, this war, is going to affect a lot more than just them. Unfortunately, their effects are much more drastic and extreme because of the horrible attacks going on. But we're going to see effects as well. And that's even if we don't even step into the war. If we do step in the war, we're going to see different effects on the United States. As I mentioned earlier, with Putin's warning, if we even have boots on the ground. Even though we do have boots in Poland, which is a NATO ally, but he's more or less saying boots on the ground as far as in Ukraine actively engaging into Russia, against Russians, sorry. So that's where we're at right now. And it's just a very, very unforgiving situation, and we'll see it increase. So increase our uncomfortable levels throughout the months. So I suggest you to stack your supplies to the rafters. Now go out there and hoard a whole bunch of toilet paper like in the beginning of the COVID pandemic? No. Because we should already be at that point to where we're just filling in the holes of our current supplies. Now, if you're a new person to prepping, that's a different story. But at the same time, I wouldn't go and buy 17 packs of toilet paper and 37 bags of rice and this, that, and completely take away all your savings, and then you're screwed financially. But you also kind of took away food from other people's mouths that may necessarily need it. So plan accordingly. Be smart. So I hope with all this gradual building chaos coming up, that you guys go out there and actually take care of your family and yourselves, and grow your pantry, stack it to the rafters if you can, and keep moving forward, because this world is crazy. It can only get crazier. So with that being said, stay strong, stay resilient, shield wall up.